welcome back. Today we're diving into a fascinating global shift. Imagine the world as a high school cafeteria. America's always been the popular kid, but now India's building its own crew, and some of America's old friends are switching tables. The global seating chart is being redrawn, and it's getting interesting. We'll break down 10 countries that are now aligning more with India than the US, not in open conflict, but in choosing new alliances and deals. This is about economic power plays, new alliances, and a world that's no longer just America's playground. So grab your popcorn or chai, and let's see which countries are making headlines and why. Is this a passing trend or a permanent shift in the world order? Let's find out. First up, Russia. The India-Russia bond goes back to the Soviet era, but lately, it's stronger than ever. While the West tries to isolate Russia, India keeps buying Russian oil at a discount. It's not just about cheap energy, it's India acting in its own interest. Defense ties run deep. India's arsenal is still mostly Russian. For Russia, India is a vital partner, proof they're not isolated. Both want a multipolar world, not one where America calls the shots. India's message, we'll do what's best for us. This partnership is key to India's strategic autonomy, and that's just the beginning. Next, China, a complicated case. Despite border disputes and rivalry, India and China often align in global forums like BRICS and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Both push back against Western economic dominance and the US dollar's supremacy. They criticize US tariffs and sanctions, finding common ground in challenging American power. It's not friendship, it's pragmatic alignment. Sometimes they clash, sometimes they co-author UN statements for reform. China supports India's bigger global role when it helps dilute US influence. For India, these forums are leverage to advance its interests without relying on the West. It's a complex, issue-based dance, but together they sometimes step on America's toes. This is strategic convergence, not a warm alliance, and it's reshaping the balance in Asia. Now, Brazil. Once seen as America's backyard, Brazil is asserting its independence, often alongside India. In BRICS, Brazil and India are building alternatives to Western institutions, like the New Development Bank. On trade, they team up against US and EU protectionism, especially in agriculture. At the WTO, they lead coalitions demanding fairer global trade rules. Both see themselves as leaders of the Global South, pushing for UN reform and permanent Security Council seats. This is a direct challenge to the old power structure. Brazil's alignment with India is a deliberate move toward a multipolar world. For the US, ignoring Brazil is no longer an option. The desire for multiple centers of power is now a South American reality. India and Brazil are rewriting the rules. Let's head to South Africa. India and South Africa share a deep bond rooted in the anti-apartheid struggle and a philosophy of non-alignment. In BRICS and ABSA, they amplify the voice of the Global South. Both criticize Western hypocrisy, especially on climate change, arguing that developed nations should bear more responsibility. South Africa refuses to pick sides in a new Cold War, just like India. Their joint efforts, like pushing for vaccine patent waivers at the WTO, put them at odds with Western interests. This partnership is about more than economics. It's ideological. They want a fairer world order, not one dictated by a handful of powerful nations. By siding with India, South Africa challenges not just US policies, but the very structure of global power. Together, they're working to reform global governance. It's a long-term project, and they're in it for the long haul. The US can't ignore this alliance. Iran, a country long at odds with the US-India's relationship with Iran, is driven by necessity, energy, and strategic access. Despite US sanctions, India values Iran as a vital oil supplier. Chabahar port is India's gateway to Afghanistan and Central Asia, bypassing Pakistan. The US granted India a waiver for Chabahar, but tensions remain. India and Iran also share security concerns, especially about Afghanistan. Their cooperation often runs counter to US and Saudi interests. By deepening ties with Iran, India signals to Washington, "We'll secure our interests." This balancing act is changing the regional game. Let's move to Indonesia, Southeast Asia's giant. The US has long dominated the region, but Indonesia is now looking to India as a key partner. Maritime security is a big focus. Joint naval exercises and patrols are on the rise. This is an Asian-led solution to regional challenges. Reducing reliance on the US economically, India and Indonesia are ramping up trade and often align in global negotiations. On issues like palm oil, Indonesia finds more support in New Delhi than in Washington. Both are large, diverse democracies, seeing themselves as natural partners shaping Asia's future. Indonesia increasingly coordinates with India at international summits. This partnership forms a powerful bloc that Washington can't ignore. The future of Asia isn't just about the US and China anymore. India and Indonesia are major players at the table. The regional balance is shifting. Next, Turkey, a NATO member but increasingly independent. Under Erdogan, Turkey's foreign policy often clashes with the US, from Syria to buying Russian S-400 missiles. India's strategic autonomy makes it an attractive partner for Turkey. Both countries call for reforming the UN Security Council, challenging the post-W2 power structure. Economically, they're expanding trade and investment, bypassing traditional Western corridors. Turkey's multi-vector policy means building bridges with Russia, China, and India. While disagreements remain, the trend is clear. Turkey's allegiance to the West is no longer unconditional. By aligning with India on global reforms, Turkey signals its independence from the Western bloc. This causes headaches in Washington and shows the world order is changing. India and Turkey are redefining alliances. The old rules don't apply anymore. Now, Saudi Arabia. The old US-Saudi oil for security deal is fading. Under MBS, Saudi Arabia is diversifying. India is now a top strategic and investment partner. Billions from the Saudi Public Investment Fund are flowing into Indian tech and infrastructure. Security cooperation is growing with joint exercises and counter-terrorism efforts. Saudi Arabia is hedging its bets, no longer relying solely on the US decisions like OPEC plus oil cuts. Now consider India's interests, not just America's. Riyadh is moving toward a multipolar strategy, balancing ties with Washington, Beijing, and New Delhi. By deepening ties with India, Saudi Arabia is rewriting the Middle East playbook. The US is no longer the only game in town. Next door, the UAE is forging a powerful alliance with India. Their economic relationship is booming, thanks to a landmark free trade deal. The UAE is investing heavily in Indian infrastructure and trading in local currencies, reducing reliance on the US dollar. Strategically, the UAE, India, Israel, and the US have formed I2U2, a partnership where India and the UAE are equal players. The UAE often diverges from US policy when its interests align with India's. They're collaborating on space, AI, and defense manufacturing. The UAE is hedging its bets, seeing India as a stable, long-term ally. This partnership enhances the UAE's strategic autonomy and balances its foreign policy. Middle powers like the UAE and India are reshaping alliances, often outside US-led structures. The Gulf's future is being written in New Delhi as much as in Washington. The balance of power is shifting fast. Finally, Vietnam. With a history of conflict with both the US and China, Vietnam is a master of pragmatic diplomacy. India and Vietnam share concerns about China's growing power. India is now a key defense partner, training Vietnamese forces and supplying advanced weapons like the BrahMos missile. This partnership boosts Vietnam's deterrence in the South China Sea, something China opposes and the US hesitates to do. For India, it's part of its Act East policy. For Vietnam, it's about diversifying partnerships. Their alliance is one between equals, free from great power baggage. By supporting Vietnam, India challenges China's influence in Asia. Regional powers are building their own security networks independent of the US. The strategic landscape of Asia is being redrawn. There you have it. 10 nations, 10 stories, one clear trend. The world is changing. The unipolar era is fading. A multipolar world is rising, with India at its heart. These alliances aren't anti-American. They're pro-independence. And that's a challenge to the old order. Countries are building diverse friendships, gaining more options and leverage. India is now one of the most sought-after partners globally. Which alliance surprised you most? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this, like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives. Thanks for watching. See you next time for a look at the new global tech race.